I'm working on a sketch. It's just a real easy pen and ink of some trees. I had a dream about some trees, and the whole inside of the tree was coming to life. It was very electrical and magic, and then it was surrounded by these very subdued colors that were very almost flat, but the whole inside of the tree seemed to be like a sliced away view. And the colors were like they were coming alive and popping off the canvas. And so I'm trying to recreate that and get that movement and the feel of that, the electricity and the vibrations coming out of it. I have sketchbooks. I have tons of sketchbooks, and this is one that I've taken out in the field with me into the mountains. And when I find something that interests me, you know, it's big enough that I can stick it in a backpack and carry it with me and go out into the mountains, and I'll come across a clearing of trees that just somehow has something magical about it that I see. The boughs of the trees seem to have this magical flowing movement from them, and like their arms are reaching out or they're dancing or something. And so that's a lot of my sketches, is just capturing that real quick, smooth movement. It's a way to disconnect from everything that's going on, being in the city and where you have the constant noise, the constant barrage of electronics and technology and cars, everything. Just to be out in nature where you're surrounded, you know, by sounds that you didn't normally hear. Well, this is my studio. It's an old school building that was built in 1902. But what I like about it, it's got the original floors, and the light, the windows in here are great. So the light, you know, comes in from this direction, but then by the end of the day, I get this nice reflective light over here. So it's a solid day of beautiful painting. So I'm working on a piece of paper. It's watercolor paper. It's a little heavier than drawing paper. And I like it because it's heavy enough that it'll accept the water and the paint, but it won't crinkle. If you use drawing paper and put water and stuff on it, it's gonna buckle and get wavy, and we don't really want that. So I tape it down. That's what I start with, and then I work with acrylic, which is a water-based paint, and which means that I don't need to have turpentine or mineral spirits or any of the smelly stuff to clean it up with. It just takes a bucket of water. So, and I have some brushes, different sizes of brushes that I use, and also I've been using these a lot lately. They're rollers, and you can see these are actually printmaking rollers, but I love to use them. And then I have some scrapers that are probably, you know, just at the hardware store or something that you can get. And then these are just little ketchup bottles, basically, that are filled with a little bit of paint and water. So you start just pouring it on there in different places, but it just kind of gives it this energy of its own. And I try not to direct it too much. I want to see where it's going to go on its own. And while I'm waiting for those, I'm letting these kind of blend together. They're kind of moving in and out together on their own. But this is one of the acrylics. I like to mix my colors on the palette. Acrylic, once it dries, is dried. It's not going to come off of anything. So you can paint literally on any surface with acrylic. So when it's dried, you can get it wet and it won't smear anything. Whereas if you were using watercolor, it might smear. So now I've got my roller, and I've got a lot of things going on here, but we'll see how this goes. And I've got some on here, so I can do a couple different things, or I can just keep going. So I like the way it all blends together, that it kind of brings these other areas in. I'm going to scooch that over a little bit because I like the way that green was going on its own. So I'm just going to drag it and see. I try not to put a lot of pressure on myself because this is fun. This is what I love to do. And so I come into this space knowing that it's a very calming and safe space. It's away from everybody else. I don't have anything else pressing that needs to be happening right now except painting. But at the end of the day, it's just a piece of paper, and if I feel like it's just really not doing what I want it to do, I'll set it aside and I'll maybe start another paper, but I won't throw it away, because I often, the paintings that I think are the worst are the ones I'll come back later when I walk back in with fresh eyes and a new day, and I say, wow, what happened? And I feel like the elves and the shoemaker, somebody's come in during the night and fixed the painting, but it was all there in the beginning, but I just didn't see it. And part of it is I have the sketch, but once I get started, I pretty much let that go. I don't go back to it. I've got it in my mind, but I'm not trying to follow it. Oh, this has to have a line here. This has to have a line there, this color, anything like that. Because each painting takes on a life of its own. But I think the important thing is getting in and actually just putting the paint down. There's days when you don't feel like painting, or you feel like you don't have a great idea. What am I going to do? And sometimes it's just coming in and starting something, even if it's, putting paint down and smearing it or whatever. What I like about on paper and acrylic is you can start, after it's kind of dried a little bit, you can go back with your thumbnail, or you could take bigger things and start scraping back for harsher lines. And I like using this because it gets you the real immediate mark. It gives that tree that says tree branch mark. If I were to take a paintbrush now and go into this, I feel like it would make it too, I don't know, too perfect. And I don't want it to be, I don't want it to start really looking like anything just at this point, but I do want to add some more color, and I keep going back to this yellow, so I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in there. I'm trying to move it around the picture plane a little bit too, so it moves your eye. When you're looking at it, you want to make sure that you're moving it around for people to make little fun places for them to look. So now I'm using just this flat, it's just a scraper, a smoothing tool, and I'm dragging it instead of the roller that I used before. And I like that line. So I don't always try to go over everything exactly. If there are some areas that I like, I'll try to keep them. But sometimes when you try to keep something in there, it's just going to make it go away too. The other thing I like about color is, it's very expressive. You can say a lot with it. And I always thought that the brighter the color you had, the more expressive you were being. But I've learned that actually, if you have a lot of bright color going on, if you have too much going on, it's like somebody's yelling at you, and it's too much of the conversation. You have to have some areas where it's kind of quiet. So I'm going to start to think kind of what I'm going to do around the outside of the trees itself to pull them together. And I think I was going to go with this yellow. And then I'm going to start to bring out shapes of the branches, or what I think are branches. To me, drawing is a way of taking notes and recording, and getting that initial thought or idea down. And painting is more of the actual making it come together, come alive. I like to work with, something in mind, whether I'm working completely abstract, where you can't tell what it is, or getting a little more realism in there. I'm still having the tree idea in my head, and so sometimes it just comes forward a little bit more. You have to kind of back and forth. If you want to sell the painting, do you paint what people want to hang in their house, or do you paint what you want to paint? And I find for me that it really worked out better if I painted what I wanted to paint, because that love and that excitement for what I'm painting comes out on your picture. And whereas if you're doing something that you don't necessarily like to paint, but everybody's going to want one, I think that shows too. We have this great community of artists where, it's everybody from somebody that's been painting for years and years and years to people that are just starting out and trying it as hobbyists. But the area here where we are with the Springer and the River Center, and now with CSU down on the river, it's bringing that art into the community more. It's not just a segregated area that, it's welcoming to everyone. And we want people to come into our studios and ask questions and see our art. And it would be great if you would buy it too. But it's really, it's a nice community of artists. Go to artist studios if they have an open house, or if they have art crawls or openings at the Bartlett Center. There's great shows in there, and the museum. And they don't cost money, it's free. You can walk in and take a look. You could spend as much time as you want, Just expose yourself to as much art as you can. That's the great thing about art, is there's no one definitive rule for everything. Everybody makes your own rules, you got to do what's right for you. But the secret is just going with it, what you feel.